So in this video in our series of the issues that Microsoft Dynamics 365 for Sales addresses for businesses, we're going to focus on the issue of customer retention and growth on the basis that it's one thing to get a new customer, but if they're coming in the front door and straight out the back, then we're not going to grow, we're not going to become more profitable. So it's important that we retain the customers we get for the maximum amount of time, and we're able to grow them and maximize the profitability of them. And there's various aspects of Dynamics that help us do that. So let's explore those within the system. So I'm in an account record or organization record at the moment. In this particular case, very rough test data. This is Fourth Coffee. Now, number one thing we want to be able to do is be able to identify who in our system is a customer and who isn't. So I'm doing it here through a relationship type field. You may choose to do it in a slightly different way or have a slightly different field, but I've got that relationship type here. So I know they're a customer. This is just the basic setup, and I'll talk about retention and growth of the sales in a moment or two. Now, step number two is, we're going to have one or a number of our staff members who are responsible for this account. And it's important we're able to track them in the system. So in this particular case, we've got an owner of Mark Payne, so we can see who's looking after them. I think the next thing we really want to do as a customer is understand what product and service they've bought. Now, we might just track that by adding some sort of record type for the product or service with all the key information that we need to track, sort of details of what they bought, any key dates, contract expiry dates, things like that we need to be aware of. It's important we record that sort of information in the system. We might do that through an integration to the finance or ERP system, so that would automatically give us the order history within CRM. And that's going to give us that full sort of visibility of that sort of trading history. But one way or another, ideally we want to know precisely what products a customer has, and that's easily visible within the system. I think the next really is to understand who our key contacts are. So if I just go to my contacts area here, who are the people at that organization? What are their roles? Because there might be a wide range of different roles in the context of the product or services we're selling. Somebody might be the buyer, but not the end user. Finance may be our contact for sort of getting our invoices paid, but not necessarily our day-to-day contact. It's quite important to understand the various different roles and to track them through the system so that if we are trying to contact them, if we are sending communications to them, we can do that in a targeted way. If we go back to my summary area, we've got our timeline. Again, it's important to understand the interactions that we're having, who's talking to our customers about what, have that sort of centrally visible so we don't trip over each other. We might want to track key documents in the files area, for example, contracts or proposals or any sort of document that sort of gives us some insight to them as a customer. That might be something we want to store centrally. And though this is the basics, it's important and we want to make sure the data quality is good. So we're going to have a series of data quality management processes sat around all this with the relevant fields to support that. So those are the basics. Let's move on to retention. But before I do that, if you are using Dynamics and you feel maybe you're not quite getting as much out of it as you'd like, feel free to reach out. We're always happy to sort of point people in the right direction. I'll put a link below. As I say, always happy to have a chat with people. Anyway, let's talk about retention. So we want to sort of maximize the lifetime value of a customer and we want to retain them. We don't want to get them straight out the back door or having come in the front. So I think there are a number of different elements that CRM can support in that respect. Firstly is for a lot of organizations, when they purchase a product or service, we as a supplier, there's some degree of complexity in terms of onboarding them with that. There's often a lot to be, it's not often a case of just shipping it out there. We need to prepare the product or service in some way before it sort of adds value for the client. And a lot of times the work that needs to be done, it's often by several people, departments with our organization, that's done outside of the CRM system. And in my experience, it's often done very crudely. It's often done in spreadsheets, and it's often a poor system to support that, and that throws up all sorts of quality issues. That's not the good starting point of a relationship. The key to retention is the client has a great experience from day one. So it's worth, I did a separate video on this, and you might want to have a look at that, but it's worth looking at, can you manage those products, those processes around service delivery or product delivery within the CRM system. So I mocked up a really crude example. I created something about a project, because this kind of sort of, using the example of an IT implementation, something we're sort of fairly familiar with, and we just very roughly mocked up this record type to help track through the process and for everybody to understand where they are, and what the next steps are. It's a very simple way of doing things. It's a very powerful way of doing things. So I think that's a great starting point. Second area is just staying in touch. So, most organizations are going to have some sort of dedicated account manager, but people forget. So we can do things like set up automated reminders or automated calls within the system, so they're just cropping up whatever it is, every 4 weeks, every quarter, every 6 months, whatever regularity we want to define. And we might want to do that depending on whether they're a top level customer, mid-level customer, or a baseline customer, for example. So that can be a very powerful way of sort of moving things forward, and having associated reported around that to be able to track neglected accounts as well. It's also important for us to have visibility of how that relationship is progressing. Are they still, perhaps using the example of that integration into the finance system, are they still buying our products or services, or is that buying sort of tailing off? There may be other systems we could integrate to that gives us a clue as to the extent they're using our products or services. If they're software as a service, if you're a software as a service company, the extent to which your client is actually using your software would indicate whether they're likely to renew in the future. So there's often ways within the system, perhaps through integration, that you can start to see the usage patterns of your client and whether they are getting value from your products and services, and give you the opportunity to address those issues if you think that's what's cropping up. It's also important to have visibility of support issues. Again, you could either use case management capabilities through customer service capabilities within Dynamics, or integrate some sort of third-party service management system, so that for any given client you can see what issues are cropping up and be aware of those. And if there are perhaps, whether you have a separate complaint or issue management system as well, it's maybe something worth looking into, whether that's in Dynamics or, again, third-party system which you integrate. Having visibility of that is important. And there may be other indicators of their level of engagement with you. For example, if we're running events or training courses or things like that, to what extent are they attending those? So again, it's areas like that you can embed within the system. The more you can understand how your client interacts with you as a business, the better position you are to take the actions you need to retain them over the long term. And those CRMs traditionally kind of do that sales and marketing stuff. It's worth sort of looking at all your customer touch points, and is CRM a good means of sort of tracking the processes around that and managing them more effectively, just so the client gets a better experience and we retain them longer. So that's kind of some of the retention dimensions. I think in terms of growth, there's a couple of core areas that occur to me. One is really understanding what they have, what products and services they're buying, and being able to sort of target them to cross-sell other relevant products and services, to be able to upsell them, particularly if you have that sort of integration with with email marketing tools, for example. It's why it's really powerful if you can get that integration into your finance system. That means that the marketing team can create mailing lists based on the fact that somebody's bought certain products or services, not bought certain products and services. They can initiate very, very targeted, segmented marketing campaigns to your customer base. And, because they're so targeted, because they're so segmented, that tends to make them very successful. So the more data you can get in your system, and if you've got sort of integrated email marketing tools, it's a very powerful way of initiating sort of upsell, cross-sell campaigns that help you improve the lifetime value and the profitability of your customers. The other thing that you may well consider doing, and I haven't got an example of it here, is around the sort of major account planning. If you've got major accounts, you may well want to have some sort of typically annual planning process that you can manage within a CRM system using sort of custom records that you can pretty easily set up within Dynamics. That might sort of set up your plans for the year, your understanding about the clients, the issues they're facing, the opportunities that we've got, the actions that we're planning on taking, what we think a target revenue might be for the year, what products or services we're going to be targeting them with, what sort of activities we're going to be undertaking. So if you aren't dealing with larger customers, that whole major account planning process, which can be really, really effective way of growing your customers, can be something that sits within the system. Anyway, these are just a few sort of elements around helping you retain your customers longer and helping you grow their value and their profitability. There's a wide range of things you can be doing, but either way, this can be a hugely powerful way of improving bottom line profitability. Anyway, hopefully that's been helpful. This is one in quite a range of videos we've done on Microsoft Dynamics 365 for Sales related themes, so feel free to check out the rest of the channel. And say if you want any help with Microsoft Dynamics, feel very free to reach out. I'll put a link below. Anyway, thanks very much for your time today, and hopefully see you again soon.